What's up, everybody? This is Mario, and I'm back with another episode of Endurify. And I know I have about 4 days left until my half Ironman in Des Moines, but today I want to talk about something a little bit different. And it was just recently inspired by a podcast that I listened to by Tim Ferriss, and he interviewed the founder of Lululemon. And they talked about a variety of things, and they talked about a lot of the different ways that this founder's life was impacted by some of the different books that he read. And of all of the books that he read, one of the main ones that popped up was a book which is called A Complaint-Free World. And it kind of caught my attention because even though I consider myself to be like a very positive person, I still, kind of catch myself sometimes complaining or being negative about situations. And so hearing, this co-founder of Lululemon, it's this guy, he has a background. He was a competitive swimmer growing up, and then he got into triathlons, and then he got into brands and business. And so I just really connected with that episode and with that gentleman and everything that he's created. And it made me interested enough to go out and check out that book. And so just wanted to talk about that a little bit for you, and start to talk about some of the things that I've learned so far. So first, the Complaint-Free World is a book that's written by Will Bowen. And so he has a background as a wildly successful salesperson in insurance, broadcasting, and advertising. But in 2006, he started to change course, and he had a simple idea. And what he did is he invited 250 people to basically try and break the negative habit of complaining by going 21 consecutive days without uttering a single gripe. And what he did is he gave each person a purple bracelet to be used as a mindfulness tool. And basically his idea was to switch the bracelet from wrist to wrist with each spoken complaint. And basically you keep switching until you go 21 consecutive days without complaining. And since 2006, this idea of a complaint-free world has basically exploded all around the world until now, almost 15 years later. The whole complaint-free bracelet total is up to like over 14 million. And this, 21-day complaint-free challenge has been recommended by Oprah, Maya Angelou, Dr. Oz, Tim Ferriss, Joe Vitale, and a bunch of other, big name people. And so he's also gone on to write just a number of best-selling books that have sold over 4 million different copies worldwide, and they've been translated into more than 35 different languages. And so again, the challenge is actually very simple. Basically, what you do is you can get one of their official complaint-free bracelets for free, or you can just get anything that you can just put around your wrist. For me, I'm just using a rubber band. And you switch the bracelet to the other wrist with every spoken or written complaint. And that's just to make you aware of the times when you are complaining, and have you pay attention to the language that you're using, so that first you can become aware of it, and then you can move forward. And then third, you basically just want to stay with it until you go 21 days in a row without complaining, and then you become a certified complaint-free person. So it's a pretty simple challenge, but it's something that I've been kind of interested in. I've been trying it out the past 3 days, and each day I have failed. I haven't gotten through the full day without complaining about a situation, complaining about a person, or just, kind of being just generally negative or frustrated. And they're kind of just like silly little things is what I'm realizing. So, for example, I took my bike in last week to get tuned up before my race. And then as I took my bike out, I put it in the car. As I got home, the front tire was low. It was basically flat. And when I took it in, it wasn't flat. So when Emily asked me, how did things go at the bike shop? My first thing was, I'm actually super annoyed. I took my bike in and they must have messed up my front tire. Something happened, and I took it in. It was full. I took it out. Now it's flat, and I basically was complaining about that. Now, the backstory to that was that I had previously taken my bike to another bike shop to try and get tuned up before my race, and they said that they couldn't do anything. So my first option was put down, and so then I called up this other bike shop, and they're like, "Well, bring it out, come bring it in, and we'll see what we can do." And after I brought it in, they were able to fix it up. They were able to replace one of my tires, and they were able to deliver it over a period of a couple of days. And I was actually really happy with that. So even though I was actually really happy with them, going out of their way to turn my bike over in a short period of time, when I was asked like how it went with the bike shop, I ended up complaining about the one thing that didn't go well, when really all I needed to do is just pump it up, and it was fine. So I'm just realizing that there's some of these, smaller little complaints that aren't really that big of a deal. And the reason why this method of having a wristband and switching it whenever you make a complaint is so successful is because there's basically 4 stages to mastery. And this is something that has been studied by a number of people, but there's basically 4 different steps to form kind of a new practice. And it starts with phase 1, which is what they call unconscious incompetence. Okay, so that's just a fancy word or a fancy phrase that means you don't realize, or it's unconscious, how often you complain or how often you're incompetent. So that's unconscious incompetence. You basically don't realize how often you complain. Step 2 is conscious incompetence. This is where you're uncomfortably aware or conscious of your complaining or being incompetent. And it's kind of this idea of misery loves company and thus derives validation. So I would say this is kind of the phase that I'm in, where I'm starting to become more aware of how much I'm complaining or how much I'm incompetent. So those are the first 2 phases. Then the third phase is conscious competence. This is a hypersensitive stage where you begin awareness of everything you say. You're basically careful with the words that you utter. So you have to kind of think about the situation. I would think about the bike scenario. I would want to complain, but I would be very conscious and I would choose my words correctly. That would be phase 3. But then phase 4 is unconscious competence. And now this is where it becomes basically unconscious, and you don't even notice, or you don't even have to think about it for you to be competent and not complaining. So these are kind of the 4 different stages that are involved with learning really any sort of skill, but also with this skill of not complaining. And so far, I would say I'm in between those first 2 stages just because I'm aware of it. But I would consider that to be a positive thing already, just the fact that I'm aware of it. So basically, this is just something that I'm kind of learning and something that I'm excited about that I wanted to share with all of you today, because I think it can branch off into so many different areas. And it can actually tie back into endurance and into triathlons, because I'm about to do a half Ironman. And I know that when I do that, I know it's going to be difficult. I know it's going to be uncomfortable. There's going to be parts of the race where I'm probably going to want to complain. But I chose to do this. I chose to sign up for it. I chose to train for it. And there's things that I can control. There's things that I can't control. And one of those things that is always in our control is our mindset, the words that we use, the things that we think about, and the things that we say, out loud into ourselves. And this is just something that I'm going to be thinking about as I'm racing this weekend. And this is just something that I want to, as I bring it back to you, I want you to think about, how often do you find yourself complaining, right? And that's just expressing kind of negative thoughts or complaining about somebody, gossiping about somebody. Those are all under the umbrella of complaining. And go just one day. You don't even need to do 21 days. Just go one day and try and be aware of how many times you complain. According to the book, people on average complain around 30 times a day. So just think about that, 30 times a day. And if you can go 21 days without complaining, think about what would that do for your life? What would that do for your relationships, and how would that benefit you? So that's what I have for today. It's a little bit about a complaint-free world. That's the name of the book. It's by Will Bowen. And I hope that this helps, and I'll talk to y'all later.